She thought her dreams were just imagination, until her alien classmate stepped into her room and recognized every painting of his world on her walls. Maya thought her junior year would be just like any other year at Westfield High. Same boring classes, same cafeteria food, same group of friends complaining about homework. She never imagined that everything would change because of one strange new student. It started on a Tuesday morning in September. The principal made an announcement during first period about a new exchange student joining their school. Maya didn't pay much attention at first. Exchange students came and went all the time. Usually they were from France or Germany, maybe Japan, if they were lucky. But when she walked into chemistry class that afternoon, she knew this student was different. Zeth sat in the back corner, and Maya couldn't help but stare. He was tall and thin, with skin so pale it almost seemed to glow under the classroom lights. His eyes were unusually large and a strange shade of gray-blue that seemed to shift colors when he moved his head. His hair was white blonde and perfectly straight, falling just past his shoulders. What really caught her attention was how he reacted to everything around him. Every time the fluorescent lights flickered, he would wince and rub his temples. When other students laughed too loudly, he would cover his ears. And when Mrs. Patterson turned on the overhead projector, he actually pushed his chair back like the light hurt him. "Where's he from?" Maya whispered to her lab partner, Diego. Diego shrugged. "Nobody knows. The teacher said he's an exchange student, but when I asked him earlier, he just said far away, and walked off." Maya watched as Mrs. Patterson handed out a worksheet with complex chemical equations. Most of the class groaned and started fumbling through their textbooks. But Zeth just looked at the paper for about 30 seconds, then started writing. No calculator, no textbook, no looking around for help. Just writing. Like he was copying something he already knew by heart. She leaned over to peek at his work. The equations were solved perfectly, with answers that would have taken her at least 20 minutes to figure out. But that wasn't the weird part. The weird part was that there was no work shown at all. No steps, no calculations, just the final answers written in handwriting that looked too neat to be real. After class, Maya tried to catch up with him in the hallway, but he moved fast and seemed to know exactly where he was going, even though it was supposedly his first day. She watched him disappear around the corner, carrying a backpack that looked like it was made of some kind of metallic material she'd never seen before. At lunch, Maya spotted him sitting alone at a table near the windows. While everyone else had regular lunch trays or brown bags, Zeth had what looked like a small silver box. When he opened it, a soft humming sound came out, and steam rose from whatever was inside. The smell was strange, too. Not bad, just completely unfamiliar. Maya grabbed her tray and walked over. "Mind if I sit here?" Zeth looked up, and for a second, she could have sworn his eyes reflected the light like an animal's. "You're Maya Rodriguez," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, how did you know that?" "We weren't introduced in chemistry." "I observe things," he said simply, then closed his silver container. The humming stopped. Maya sat down anyway, even though something about the way he said that gave her chills. "So where are you from? Diego said you wouldn't tell him." "Far away," Zeth repeated, the same answer he'd apparently given Diego. Like, how far? Different country? Different continent? He tilted his head, studying her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Very far. Farther than you would believe." Maya was about to ask what that meant when she noticed what he was doing with his hands. He had pulled out a notebook and was sketching something while they talked. She tried to see what it was, but he kept the notebook angled away from her. "What are you drawing?" "Maps," he said without looking up. "Maps of what?" "Places I need to remember." The bell rang before Maya could ask more questions. Zeth packed up his things quickly. Too quickly, like he was in a hurry to get away from her. As he stood up, his notebook fell open, and Maya caught a glimpse of what he'd been working on. It wasn't a map of any place she recognized. It looked like a view from high above, showing roads and houses and trees, but drawn with incredible detail. And right in the center of the drawing there was a house that looked exactly like her house. Not similar, exactly like it. down to the small garden her mom planted by the front steps and the old oak tree in their backyard. Her house was circled in red ink. "Wait," she called out, but Zeth was already gone, lost in the crowd of students, heading to their next classes. Maya spent the rest of the day thinking about that drawing. How could a new student know what her house looked like? Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe all houses looked the same from above. But the more she thought about it, the more certain she became that it was definitely her house. After school, instead of heading home like usual, Maya decided to follow Zeth. She stayed far enough back so he wouldn't notice, ducking behind cars and trees when he turned around to look over his shoulder, which he did a lot. She expected him to get on a bus or meet someone for a ride. Instead, he walked through downtown, past all the residential neighborhoods toward the old part of town where nobody lived anymore. Maya followed him for almost 2 miles until he reached the abandoned radio tower that had been standing empty for as long as she could remember. Instead of walking past it, Zeth headed straight for the tower. Maya watched from behind a cluster of trees as he approached what looked like a solid concrete wall at the base of the structure. He pressed his hand against it, and to Maya's amazement, a section of the wall slid open like a door. Zeth disappeared inside, and the wall closed behind him. Maya stood there for a long time, staring at the tower and trying to make sense of what she'd just seen. Exchange students didn't live in abandoned radio towers. They lived with host families in normal houses with normal doors that didn't magically appear and disappear. As she finally started the long walk home, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that Zeth wasn't just different, he was something else entirely. And somehow he already knew more about her than any stranger should. The next morning, Maya couldn't concentrate on anything. During English class, she found herself staring out the window toward the radio tower. During math, she kept thinking about those perfect chemistry answers with no work shown. And during art class, she started sketching without really thinking about what she was drawing. When she looked down at her paper, she had drawn the same view she'd seen in Zeth's notebook, her neighborhood from high above, with her house in the center. But she had never seen her neighborhood from that angle. She had never been in a plane or helicopter over her town. So how did she know what it would look like? Maya erased the drawing and tried to focus on the assignment, but the image stayed in her mind. Something was happening, something bigger than just a weird new student with strange habits. And whether she wanted to or not, she was becoming part of it. For 2 weeks, Maya couldn't get that image out of her head, the wall opening like magic, Zeth disappearing inside the radio tower, her own drawing that she somehow knew how to make, even though she'd never seen her neighborhood from above. She tried to act normal at school, but it was impossible. Every time she saw Zeth in the hallway or in chemistry class, her heart would start racing. He never looked directly at her anymore, but she had the strange feeling he was always aware of exactly where she was. Maya started paying closer attention to everything about him. The way he brought different silver containers for lunch each day, each one making that soft humming sound. How he never seemed to sweat even during gym class when everyone else was exhausted. The fact that he never used the bathroom, never drank water, never seemed to eat anything that looked like normal food. But the thing that bothered her most was how the teachers treated him. It was like they knew something she didn't. Mrs. Patterson never called on him in chemistry, even though he clearly knew all the answers. Mr. Williams, the gym teacher, let him sit out most activities without asking for a doctor's note, and when Maya tried to look up his information in the student directory, his profile was completely blank except for his name. Maya decided she had to know the truth. On a Friday after school, she worked up the courage to corner him by his locker. "Need to talk to you," she said, trying to sound braver than she felt. Zeth closed his locker slowly and turned to face her. Up close, his eyes were even stranger than she remembered. They seemed to have tiny flecks of silver in them that moved like they were alive. "About what? Maya Rodriguez of 1247 Maple Street?" Maya felt her blood go cold. "How do you know my address? I know many things about you. Your birthday is March 15th. You have a small scar on your left knee from falling off your bike when you were 7. You paint landscapes in your room late at night when you can't sleep. You've been having dreams about stars and distant places since you were a child." "Stop," Maya whispered. "How could you possibly know all that?" Zeth stepped closer and Maya noticed he didn't smell like anything. No cologne, no soap, no human scent at all. You've been watching me, Maya, following me, asking questions. Your curiosity could be problematic. Problematic for who? Instead of answering, Zeth did something that shocked her. He smiled. Not a friendly smile, but not mean either. More like he was impressed. You're persistent. That's unusual for your age group. Most humans your age give up when they encounter something they don't understand. My age group? What's that supposed to mean? Zeth looked around the empty hallway, then back at her. Walk with me. They went outside to the parking lot, which was mostly empty now except for a few cars belonging to teachers staying late. Zeth led her to a bench near the football field, far enough from the school that no one could hear them talking. You want to know where I really come from, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you want to know why I have a drawing of your house? Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. Zeth was quiet for a long moment, staring up at the sky even though it was still light outside. What if I told you that your life was never as private as you thought it was? That there are others who have been observing your kind for a very long time? I'd say that sounds crazy. Yes, it does sound crazy. He looked at her again with those strange silver-flecked eyes. But crazy doesn't mean untrue. Maya felt like her brain was trying to process too much information at once. Are you saying you're not human? I'm saying I'm not from here. Not from your town, not from your country, not from your world. That's impossible. Is it? You've seen things. That should be impossible. The wall that opened for me. Your own drawing of something you've never seen. The dreams you have about places that don't exist on any map you know. Maya's hands were shaking now. How do you know about my dreams? Because your dreams aren't just dreams, Maya. They're memories, impressions, images that have been reaching you from very far away for most of your life. That doesn't make any sense. Seth reached into his backpack and pulled out the notebook she'd seen him drawing in. He opened it to a page near the beginning and handed it to her. Maya looked down and gasped. The page was covered with drawings, but not of Earth locations. These were pictures of places that looked like they belonged on alien worlds. Strange buildings that seemed to grow out of the ground like plants. Cities floating in the air above landscapes of purple grass and silver trees. And flying through the skies above these impossible places there were beings that looked almost human, but not quite. I've dreamed about this place, Maya whispered, pointing to one of the drawings. I know. And this one. She turned the page. I've dreamed about all of these places. That's because they're real, Maya. And somehow you've been seeing them, feeling them. We don't understand how, but we know it's happening. Maya looked up from the notebook, her mind spinning. We? My people. The ones who sent me here to observe and learn about humans. Specifically to learn about humans like you. Like me, how? Humans who seem to have a natural ability to connect with us, to sense us even across the vast distance between our worlds. It's incredibly rare, but it does happen, and when it does, we study those individuals very carefully. Maya felt sick. You've been studying me? Not just you. There are others scattered across your planet. But you're one of the strongest we've found. Your ability to receive our transmissions is remarkable. What kind of transmissions? Thoughts, images, emotions, sometimes memories. We don't send them intentionally, but some humans seem to pick them up anyway. Like your brain is naturally tuned to our frequency. Maya stood up from the bench, the notebook falling from her hands. This is insane. You're telling me I'm some kind of alien radio? Zeth picked up his notebook and stood as well. I'm telling you that you're special in a way most humans never are, and that's why I'm here. To study me like a lab rat? Originally, yes, but things have become complicated. Complicated how? Zeth was quiet for so long that Maya thought he wasn't going to answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. I wasn't supposed to make direct contact with you. I was supposed to observe from a distance, file reports, and return home. But being here, watching humans, watching you, it's changed something in me. My people don't experience what you call emotions the way you do. But I think I'm starting to understand them. And that's a problem. A very big problem. My handlers have noticed that my reports are becoming less objective. They think I'm becoming too attached to this world, to the humans I'm supposed to be studying. They've decided to bring me home early. Maya felt a strange panic rising in her chest. When? 3 days. They stood there in silence as the sun started to set behind the school building. Maya felt like her entire understanding of the world had just crumbled and reformed into something completely different. "Why are you telling me all this?" she finally asked. "Because I think you deserve to know the truth. And because..." Zeth hesitated. "Because I want to experience something real before I leave. Something genuine and human. Not observation from a distance, but actual connection." "What does that mean?" Zeth looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "It means I want to know what it's like to truly understand how humans live. Not just how they behave in public, but how they exist in their private spaces. How they really are when nobody else is watching." Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. "And how exactly would you do that?" "I was hoping," Zeth said quietly, "that you might show me." Maya spent the entire weekend thinking about what Zeth had told her. Aliens, observation, dreams that were actually some kind of cosmic connection. It all sounded impossible, but deep down, it felt true. It explained so many things that had never made sense before. The dreams she'd been having since childhood about strange worlds and impossible cities. The way she sometimes knew things she had no reason to know. The feeling she'd always had that she was different from other people, like she was tuned to a frequency nobody else could hear. On Sunday night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking about Zeth's request. He wanted to see how humans really lived. He wanted to understand what it meant to be human beyond just observing from a distance. Part of her was terrified. This wasn't just inviting a classmate over to hang out. This was inviting someone from another world into her most private space. But another part of her, the part that had always felt like she didn't quite belong anywhere, was curious about someone who might actually understand what it felt like to be an outsider. Monday morning at school, Maya found Zeth at his usual table, in the cafeteria. He was staring at his silver container but not eating, like he was lost in thought. "I've been thinking about what you asked," she said, sitting down across from him. He looked up, those strange, silver-flecked eyes focusing on her face. "And?" "My parents are going to visit my aunt this weekend. They'll be gone from Friday evening until Sunday afternoon." Zeth nodded slowly. "And you would be comfortable with me coming to your house?" "I wouldn't say comfortable, but yes, I think I want to understand this as much as you do." "Understand what?" "What it means that I can somehow connect to your world. What it means that you've been watching me. What it means that I'm apparently not as human as I thought I was." Zeth closed his container, and the humming stopped. "You're completely human, Maya. That's what makes your ability so remarkable. Most of your species can't perceive anything beyond their immediate physical environment. But you're like a bridge between worlds. Is that why you really came here? Just to study people like me? That's why I was sent here. But it's not why I stayed." "What do you mean?" Seth glanced around the cafeteria, making sure no one was close enough to overhear them. "My mission was supposed to last 6 months. I was supposed to gather data about human adolescent development, particularly focusing on individuals with psychic sensitivity. File reports every week. Maintain emotional distance at all costs. But the longer I stayed, the more I began to understand what your people call feelings. Curiosity became fascination. Clinical observation became personal interest. I started looking forward to seeing certain individuals each day rather than just collecting data about them." Maya felt her cheeks getting warm. "Certain individuals?" "You know the answer to that question. They sat in silence for a moment while Maya tried to process what he was telling her. So when you said your handlers were concerned about your reports becoming less objective, they're concerned because my reports have become almost entirely about you. Your behavior, your artwork, your dreams, your emotional responses to various situations. I'm supposed to be studying human teenagers in general, but I can barely focus on anyone else. And that's a problem because emotional attachment is considered a serious contamination in my culture. We don't form personal bonds the way humans do. We don't experience what you call love or friendship or longing. We exist more like individual units working toward collective goals. That sounds lonely. We don't experience loneliness either. Or we didn't, until some of us started spending extended time around humans. Now my people are discovering that prolonged contact with your species can trigger emotional responses we didn't know we were capable of. Maya stared at him. Are you saying that being around humans is changing your entire species? Not our entire species. Just those of us who come here for extended periods, and it's causing quite a bit of concern among our leadership. Why? Because emotions make us less efficient, less focused, less willing to follow orders without question. They make us more like you. And that's bad? Zeth smiled. And this time, it looked genuinely warm. My superiors think so, but I'm beginning to think it might be the best thing that ever happened to me. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As they packed up their things, Maya made a decision. Friday night, she said. Come to my house around 8. My parents will be gone by then. Are you sure? No. But I'm going to do it anyway. That week dragged by slower than any week in Maya's life. She found herself constantly nervous, constantly second-guessing her decision, constantly wondering what exactly she was getting herself into. She also found herself paying even more attention to Zeth's behavior at school. Now that she knew what to look for, she could see signs of his non-human nature everywhere. The way he never blinked as often as other people. How his skin always seemed to be exactly the right temperature, never too hot or too cold. The fact that his hair and clothes never looked messy, no matter how windy it was outside. But she also started noticing more human-like qualities that she'd missed before. The way his expression would soften when he looked at children playing on the playground. How he seemed genuinely interested when their history teacher talked about human art and culture. The careful way he watched other students interact, like he was trying to learn how to be part of their world. On Thursday, Maya's nervousness reached a peak. What if this was all some elaborate joke? What if Zeth was just a weird exchange student with an overactive imagination? What if she was losing her mind? But then she remembered the wall that had opened for him at the radio tower. She remembered her own drawings of places she'd never seen. She remembered the dreams that had felt more real than her waking life. Friday afternoon, Maya watched her parents pack their car for the trip to her aunt's house. You sure you'll be okay alone for the weekend? Her mom asked for the third time. I'll be fine, Mom. I'm 17, not 7. I know, but call if you need anything. And don't forget to lock the doors. I won't forget. Maya watched them drive away, then went inside to wait. She'd cleaned her room twice, changed her clothes 3 times, and reorganized her art supplies for no reason at all. She was more nervous than she'd ever been in her life. At exactly 8 o'clock, there was a soft knock at the front door. Maya took a deep breath and opened it. Zeth stood on her porch, looking as nervous as she felt. He was wearing regular clothes, jeans and a simple blue shirt, but somehow they looked strange on him, like he wasn't quite comfortable in human clothing. Hi, she said. Hi. They stood there for a moment, looking at each other. Then Maya stepped aside and gestured for him to come in. This is my house, she said, immediately feeling stupid for stating the obvious. It's warm, Zeth said, looking around the living room. Not just temperature warm. It feels welcoming. That's my mom. She's always trying to make everything cozy. Zeth walked slowly through the room, stopping to look at family photos on the mantelpiece, running his fingers along the soft fabric of the couch, examining the books on the shelves like they were precious artifacts. This is so different from How I've been living, he said quietly. Where have you been living? Really? In a temporary habitat inside the radio tower. It's efficient, but it's nothing like this. No personal touches, no warmth, no evidence of life being lived. Maya watched as he continued exploring, touching things gently, carefully, like he was afraid he might break something, or like he was trying to understand the concept of a home through his fingertips. Would you like to see the rest of the house? He nodded, and Maya gave him a tour. The kitchen, where her mom's cookbooks were scattered on the counter, and her dad's coffee mug still sat in the sink. The dining room, where homework papers were spread across the table. The hallway lined with more family photos and Maya's artwork from elementary school. Finally, they reached Maya's bedroom door. She hesitated with her hand on the doorknob. This is my room, she said. My private space. Are you sure you want to see it? Only if you're sure you want to show me. Maya turned the doorknob and opened the door. Zeth stepped inside and immediately went completely still. His eyes went wide and he made a sound like he couldn't breathe. Maya, he whispered. What is this? Maya followed Zeth's gaze around her bedroom and tried to see it through his eyes. Her walls were covered with dozens of drawings and paintings she'd created over the years. Most of them showed scenes of space, distant planets, strange cities. Among the stars, beings that looked almost human, but somehow different. But it wasn't just the space art that had made Zeth freeze. Mixed in with her astronomy drawings were paintings of landscapes that didn't exist on Earth. Purple grass fields under twin suns, silver trees that seemed to bend and flow like water, cities that floated in the air, connected by bridges of light, and, scattered throughout all of these otherworldly scenes were figures that looked remarkably similar to Zeth. Tall, pale beings with large eyes and flowing hair, moving through these alien environments like they belonged there. Maya, Zeth said again, his voice barely above a whisper. How long have you been drawing these? Since I was little, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Maya's heart was racing. Why? What's wrong? Instead of answering, Zeth walked closer to one of her paintings. It showed a group of beings standing on what looked like a crystal platform, surrounded by stars. The beings were clearly not human, but they weren't monsters either. They looked peaceful, intelligent, and somehow familiar. This one, he said, pointing at a figure in the center of the group. When did you paint this? Maya looked at the painting she'd finished just 6 months ago. Last spring, I had this really vivid dream about it. Why? Because that's my father. Maya felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. What? The being you painted in the center of that group. That's my father, and those others around him. They're members of the High Council of my world. Maya stared at the painting, then at Zeth, then back at the painting. That's impossible. I've never met your father. I didn't even know you existed until a few weeks ago. Zeth moved to another painting, this one showing a single figure standing on a cliff overlooking a vast purple ocean. This is my home city, he said. And this figure? Maya, this is me. Maya looked at the painting. She'd created it 2 years ago, after a dream so vivid she'd woken up crying because it had felt more real than her actual life. The figure in the painting was definitely Zeth. Same height, same posture, same flowing hair. I don't understand, Maya said. How could I have been painting you in your world for years before I met you? Zeth turned away from the paintings to face her. His strange silver-flecked eyes were wide with something that looked like fear. My people have been observing Earth for decades, he said slowly. But we've always done it from a great distance. We use technology that allows us to monitor human behavior without being detected. Okay. But the technology has side effects we didn't anticipate. It creates what you might call psychic residue, traces of our thoughts and memories that somehow leak into your atmosphere. Maya sat down hard on her bed. And some humans can pick up on these traces? Very few. Maybe 1 in 10 million. We call them receivers. Most receivers only get fragments, brief flashes of images or feelings they can't explain. But you, Zeth gestured at the walls around them. You're receiving entire memories, detailed images of our world, our people, our lives. So all these dreams I've been having, they're not dreams. They're windows into my world, into my life. Maya looked around her room with new eyes. Every painting, every drawing, every sketch, they weren't products of her imagination. They were glimpses of an alien world, filtered through her dreams and translated into art. "This is crazy," she whispered. "There's more," Seth said quietly. "The fact that you're receiving such clear, detailed images means the connection between us is stronger than we realized. Much stronger." "What kind of connection?" "We're not sure, but my superiors think it might be permanent." Maya felt cold suddenly. "Permanent how?" "Maya, the images you've been receiving aren't just random transmissions from my world. They're specifically from me. My memories, my thoughts, my experiences. Somehow your mind has formed a direct link to mine across the vast distance between our worlds. That's why you're really here, isn't it? Not to study humans in general, to study me specifically." Seth nodded. "When my people discovered that someone on Earth was receiving such detailed transmissions from one of us, they had to investigate. I volunteered for the mission because—" He hesitated. "Because what?" "Because I was already feeling the connection, too. For months before I came here, I'd been having what my people thought were malfunctions in my neural processing. Images and feelings that didn't belong to me. Emotions I shouldn't have been capable of experiencing. You were seeing into my life? Your art classes, your walks home from school, your conversations with your parents, the way you looked at the stars at night. I was experiencing pieces of your life, and I didn't understand what was happening to me." Maya stared at him. "So we've been connected this whole time, even before you came to Earth." "It appears so, and my superiors are very concerned about what this might mean." "Concerned how?" "Connections like this have never happened before. They don't know if it's dangerous, or if it might spread to other members of my species, or if it represents some kind of evolutionary development." Maya stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the stars that were just becoming visible in the evening sky. "So what happens now?" "That's why I wanted to come here tonight, to experience one real moment of human connection before they take me away." "Take you away where?" "Back to my world, tomorrow morning." Maya spun around to face him. "Tomorrow? But you said 3 days." "That was before they detected tonight's meeting. My superiors have been monitoring my activities, and they know I made direct contact with you outside of the approved observation protocols. They're watching us right now? Not directly, but they know I'm here, and they've decided the connection between us has become too strong to risk leaving intact." Maya felt panic rising in her chest. "What does that mean?" "It means they're going to take me home and try to sever the link between our minds. They think if they can put enough distance between us and use certain technologies, they can break the connection permanently. And if they can't?" Seth was quiet for a long moment. "Then they might decide that the risk is too great to leave either of us alive." Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. "They would hurt you? They would do whatever they thought was necessary to protect our species from what they see as contamination. And me? I don't know. That's why I had to see you tonight, to warn you, and to—" He stopped. "To what?" "To tell you that these past few weeks of knowing you have been the most real and alive I've ever felt. Even if they take away my memories of this place, of you, I wanted you to know that this connection we share has changed me in ways I can't even understand." Maya walked back to him, stopping just a few feet away. This close, she could see that. His eyes weren't just silver-flecked. They actually seemed to contain tiny points of light like stars. "What if we ran away?" she said suddenly. "Where would we go?" "I don't know. Somewhere they couldn't find us." Seth smiled sadly. "Maya, they have technology that can track me anywhere on your planet. And even if we could hide from them, you couldn't survive on my world, and I can't stay on yours indefinitely without support from my people. So this is it? One night and then you disappear forever? Unless what?" Seth looked around her room again. at all the paintings of his world she'd created without ever having been there. Unless we find a way to prove to them that this connection isn't something to be feared, that it might actually be something wonderful. How would we do that? I don't know yet, but Maya, the fact that you've been able to see my world through your dreams, and that I've been able to feel your emotions across space, that's not just a random accident. That's something new, something that's never happened before in the history of either of our species. And you think that might be important? I think it might be the most important thing that's ever happened. The first real bridge between two worlds. Maya looked at her paintings with new understanding. They weren't just art. They were proof of something impossible. Evidence of a connection that transcended everything both their species thought they knew about the universe. So what do? We have until sunrise, Zeth said. If we're going to find a way to convince my people that this connection is worth preserving, we need to figure it out tonight. Maya nodded, determination replacing the fear in her chest. Then let's get started. Maya and Zeth spent the next hour going through every single painting and drawing in her room. With Zeth explaining what each image really showed, Maya began to understand just how deep their connection went. The purple grasslands were from his childhood home. The floating cities were the capital of his world. The crystal platforms were gathering places where his people came to share knowledge and make important decisions. Every detail was perfect, down to the color of the light from their twin suns. "This is incredible," Maya said, staring at a drawing she'd made when she was 12. "I painted the inside of your house before I even knew houses like this could exist. And I felt your emotions when you created it," Zeth replied. "I remember feeling this strange sense of warmth and safety, even though I was thousands of light years away from you." They were so focused on examining the artwork that neither of them noticed the soft humming sound that had started outside. It wasn't until a bright light began shining through Maya's bedroom window that they realized they were no longer alone. "They're here," Zeth said, his face going pale. "Earlier than I expected." Maya ran to the window and looked out. Hovering above her backyard was something that looked like a cross between a helicopter and a soap bubble. It was perfectly round, and seemed to be made of some kind of transparent material that reflected the moonlight in rainbow colors. "Is that a spaceship?" "A transport vessel. They've come to take me home." The humming sound got louder, and the light from the ship grew brighter. Maya had to shield her eyes as the vessel slowly descended toward her backyard. "What do we do?" she asked. "I don't know. I hoped we'd have more time to figure this out." The light suddenly cut off, and Maya could see 3 figures standing in her backyard. They looked similar to Zeth, but somehow more formal, more serious. They wore clothes that seemed to be made of the same metallic material as Zeth's lunch containers. One of them raised something that looked like a small device and pointed it at the house. Maya heard a voice inside her head speaking in a language she didn't understand but somehow knew was directed at Zeth. "What are they saying?" she whispered. "They want me to come outside. Now. And if you don't, they'll come in here and get me. And they might decide you're too dangerous to leave with your memories intact." Maya felt ice-cold fear run through her body. They would erase my memory? Or worse. Maya looked out the window again. The 3 figures were standing perfectly, still waiting. They looked patient, but there was something menacing about their stillness. "Zeth," she said suddenly, "what if this connection between us isn't just about receiving images? What if it goes both ways?" "What do you mean?" "You said you've been feeling my emotions. What if I could somehow share my thoughts with your people directly? Show them what this connection really means?" "Maya, that's incredibly dangerous. If you try to make mental contact with them and something goes wrong, it could damage your mind permanently. And if I don't try, they're going to take you away and probably erase my memory anyway." Zeth stared at her. "You would risk that? For the chance to save this connection between us?" "Yes." The voice in Maya's head came again, more insistent this time. She could tell that Zeth's people were getting impatient. "How would we do it?" Zeth asked. I don't know. How do I usually connect? With your world? Through dreams, through art, through your subconscious mind when you're relaxed and open. Maya sat down on her bed and closed her eyes. Then I need to try to open that connection as wide as possible. And you need to help me aim it at them instead of just at you. Maya, I've never tried anything like this before. Neither have I. But we're running out of time. Maya took a deep breath and tried to clear her mind the way she did when she was painting. She thought about all the images she'd been seeing in her dreams, all the feelings of connection and understanding that had been building between her and Zeth. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly she began to sense something. It felt like standing at the edge of a vast ocean of thoughts and emotions that didn't belong to her. I can feel them, she whispered. Your people. They're curious about me, but also afraid. Can you show them something? Maya concentrated harder, trying to project her thoughts outward the way she'd been unconsciously receiving theirs. She focused on the paintings around her room, on the connection she and Zeth had discovered, on the feeling of wonder and belonging she'd experienced when she learned the truth about her dreams. Suddenly, the mental ocean exploded with activity. Maya felt like she was drowning in alien thoughts and emotions. Fear, confusion, anger, but also something else. Something that felt like amazement. The voice in her head changed. Instead of the harsh, commanding tone from before, it became softer, more questioning. Maya couldn't understand the words, but she could sense the meaning. They want to know how this is possible, Zeth said, his eyes wide. They're asking if you're really human. Maya tried to project an answer without words. She thought about her life, her family, her school, her completely normal human existence. But she also thought about the dreams, the inexplicable connection to distant worlds, the paintings that had come from somewhere beyond her own imagination. The mental conversation continued for several minutes. Maya felt like she was learning to speak a new language made entirely of emotions and images. Gradually, she began to understand what Zeth's people were really afraid of. They think the connection between us means their species is changing, she said, opening her eyes. They're worried that contact with humans will make them too much like us. And that's bad because they've built their entire civilization on logic and efficiency. Emotions are chaos to them. They think if their people start feeling the way humans do, their society will collapse. The light from the ship in the backyard pulsed, and Maya felt another wave of alien thoughts. But there's something else, she continued. Some of them are curious about what they might gain from the connection. They've been watching humans for so long, studying us, but they've never understood what makes us create art or music or poetry. They think maybe the connection could help them understand. So what do they want to do? Maya closed her eyes again and reached out with her mind. The conversation that followed was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. She was debating with beings from another world using thoughts and feelings instead of words. She showed them her artwork, but not just the images. She shared the feelings that had inspired each painting, the longing for something beyond the ordinary world, the sense of connection to something vast and beautiful, the joy of creating something that had never existed before. In return, they shared their perspective. The loneliness of a species that had achieved perfect efficiency but lost the ability to wonder. The fear of change, but also the growing realization that maybe change wasn't always destruction. When the mental conversation finally ended, Maya felt exhausted, but hopeful. What did they decide? Zeth asked. Before Maya could answer, the three figures in the backyard began moving toward the house. But instead of the threatening advance she expected, they approached slowly, almost respectfully. They want to meet you properly, Zeth said, sounding surprised. They want to see the paintings for themselves. Maya and Zeth went downstairs and opened the back door. Up close, Zeth's people looked even more like him, but their expressions were softer than she'd expected. The one in the center stepped forward and spoke directly into Maya's mind, but this time in words she could understand. You are the human who dreams of our world. Yes, Maya replied out loud, then realized she could respond mentally as well. And you're the people who've been watching us. We have been afraid of what the connection between you and our young one might mean for both our species. And now? The three figures exchanged glances that somehow conveyed volumes of information. Now we think it might be the beginning of something neither of our species could achieve alone. What do you mean? You have shown us that emotion does not have to mean chaos. That connection does not have to mean weakness. And in return, perhaps we can show your people that there are wonders in the universe beyond what you have imagined. Maya felt a surge of excitement. You mean? We mean that instead of ending this connection, we would like to nurture it. Carefully, slowly, with safeguards for both species. You would be the first human ambassador to our world, and our young one would remain here as our first permanent representative to yours. Maya looked at Zeth, who seemed as stunned as she felt. You would want that? She asked him. More than anything, he replied. But Maya, it would mean your life would never be normal again. You'd be part of something much bigger than anything you've ever known. Maya thought about her quiet life in her small town, about the dreams that had always made her feel like an outsider, about the connection that had made her feel like she finally belonged somewhere. I've never been normal anyway, she said. Maybe it's time to find out what I'm really meant to be. The lead figure stepped closer. Then we have much to discuss and much to prepare. But first, we would like to see these images you have created of our world. Maya led the group up to her bedroom, where Zeth's people examined her paintings with wonder. They touched the canvases gently, as if they couldn't believe that a human mind had been able to capture their world so perfectly.